just before the day. Sure, that's all that's left. Better than regret. I became a runner. Need shoes built to last. So I can speed by the past. Never face the facts. I became a runner. Oh, I became a runner. Oh, I became a runner. Oh, I became a runner. How can I forget you? You never left, you always right there to my rescue.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon's webinar, How to Foster Authentic Representation in Marketing, bringing your brands and campaigns to life through diversity and inclusion. We're super excited for another We Create Space DEI webinar. My name is Neil Hudson-Basing. My pronouns are he, him. I am the events manager for We Create Space. I joined back in November, and it is wonderful delivering this content and getting to know our business community. And we launched this series of webinars this year to help address some of the issues that have coming up, some of the things that people have been talking to us about at events and sharing on social media. And so we have come up with a collection of DEI focused webinars aimed at ERG professionals, HR professionals, those working in marketing, decision makers, leaders, and anyone that wants to make their workplaces more inclusive. So before we launch into today's discussion, I just want to share a little bit more about We Create Space with you all. There you go. That's just the program for today. So brief intro, we've got an opening poll in conversation, and then we've got some time for Q&A. We love a Q&A. We want to answer as many questions as we can, and our panel would love to answer them too, and we've factored in time for those. So We Create Space, who are we? We are a global learning platform delivering DEI provision to organisations that want to make themselves more inclusive. We connect our 250 plus queer change makers with those organisations. We're a community interest company, so the money that we make gets invested back into our community through free events, resources, and support. Here's some of our partners. 86% of our clients said our bespoke solutions are extremely helpful in supporting their DEI objectives, and 95% of clients said they would recommend We Create Space. So go us. We do this through a number of ways. Firstly, through webinars like this, live conversations and panel discussions. We also run leadership development programs and retreats, bespoke content and media partnerships, and consultancy and research. So if we can help you, we would love to. We're actually gearing up for Pride season. Pride season is a brilliant season for us to get to know more organizations out there. And I'm just going to drop a link in the chat box so that you can reach out to us and find out how we can support you during your Pride season. One of the sessions that we covered at the start of the year was around how we can help organizations amidst challenging times, such as budget cuts when it comes to services, particularly DEI provision. And so we are really, really keen to see how we can work and support you. It is great to see people's intros in the chat box. Keep those coming through. It's wonderful to see who our audience are. Before we launch into discussion, I also want to share a bit more about our campus with you. This is our new online platform, and we are absolutely delighted to launch it. We have just reached over 500 members of the campus, and we'd love you to join campus too. So I'm just going to play a quick video just to give you a feel for what our campus is all about. So, will you join us on campus? Campus is the place to go to find out all about We Create Space, to get to know our community better, to find out more about our events. So, do join us on campus. We're hoping to bring together queer leaders, DEI change agents, and allies on our global platform, and also to get to help you know your local communities as well. Um, yeah, learn, connect, and grow. That's what we're all about at We Create Space, and we want our campus to do that. And we want our events like to do that. So with that in mind, I'd like to stop sharing my screen and invite our panel to join us, join me on screen, so you get to see their faces and get to meet them. Hi there, Lee. Hi, Roxy. And I think we've got Andrew just joining us in a second. Before we do, I'll
Yes,
just
I'm
wait for
here.
Andrew. Oh, perfect. Do you want to pop your camera on, Andrew? It'd be brilliant to see
Yes.
you. Fantastic.
Hi,
How you all
everyone.
doing? How you all doing today?
Busy day, busy day.
Yeah, busy days all round?
Yeah, I will
Yes.
thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we'll do some quick intro shortly, but before we do, to give us a feel for where you are today in terms of this topic, I'm going to launch a quick poll, and we'd love to hear from you. So, our poll questions are just to get us started. Do you feel your organization fosters authentic representation in a genuine and meaningful way? Yes, absolutely. Yes, somewhat. Not in my opinion, or I'm unsure. So, do you feel your organization fosters authentic representation in a genuine and meaningful way? And hopefully, you're able to answer that. There you go. Some people are answering. Great. And then our second question, what do you think are the biggest barriers when it comes to authentic representation in marketing? Is it a lack of awareness and education, a lack of representation and co-production at decision-making level, the fear of getting it wrong, lack of understanding around own brand objectives or story, real value gets lost in desire for PR moment, or being rigid and stuck in their ways? So I'll give you a moment or two. This is just a poll to set the scene and give us an understanding of where you're at today in your organization. See those coming through. And before we go over to that, I'm just going to ask our panel to introduce themselves. Roxy, I'll come to you first.
Hiya. Hi everyone. My name is Roxy Murray. My pronouns are she, they, and for anyone that is disabled or needs a visual description, I'm a mixed race femme with black curly hair. I'm wearing a red beret, black cat eye glasses, and I have reddish lips and a black jumper on. I am a disability rights advocate who lives life with multiple sclerosis. I'm pansexual, and my main job is a EDI champion who champions diversity and inclusion, specifically for queer and disabled people of color in everything I do, but particularly marketing, disabled content, and also the healthcare system. So thank you all for being here today.
Thanks so much, Roxy. And Lee, how about yourself in relation to you and a bit about today's theme?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lee Maybe. My pronouns are he, him. For those of you who need an audio description, I am a white cisgendered man. Some would call me a gay bear. I'm very hairy and astute, and I'm 6'7" tall. I'm currently wearing a green overshirt and a white t-shirt, and I am a gay male. I work for a media agency. I've worked in the media and advertising landscape for the past 17 years. And in my current role, I look after a plethora of different clients, some of them who do lean into the LGBTQ plus space. And I help and advise brands on how to be more inclusive with media and creative to create a more equitable media system for all.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lee. And Andrew.
Thank you, Neil. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Chen. I am the founder of My Inspire Project. I go by they, or you can just call me by my name. I was born in Taiwan. I have lived in the States, in New York, and many places in Europe. And so now I'm based between Los Angeles, London, and Taiwan. I'm actually in Taiwan at the moment, so saying hi to everybody. I'm a non-binary, kind of like multicultural content creator, creative director, and also kind of like a branding architect. So I I work, I have a 10 years luxury background in fashion and across LVMH and other company, VVH and Issey Miyake such as. And also I consult and serve for tourism boards, travel industry, and also lifestyle brands as a brand ambassadors, but also a consultant to help them achieve creative success and also to be have a broader appeal and promotion and audience. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all, and great for you. So excited for this panel. You all bring a wealth of experience to this topic, and really excited to dive in. Before we do, though, I'm going to share the poll results to give us a feel for where the audience are in terms of this topic. So, do you feel your organisation fosters authentic representation in a genuine and meaningful way? 19% say yes, absolutely. 57% say yes, somewhat, which is promising. 10% not in my opinion, and 14% are unsure. So that gives us a bit of base work where we are. And then what do you think are the biggest barriers when it comes to authentic representation in marketing? So the top three are lack of awareness and education, lack of representation and co-production at decision-making level, and the fear of getting it wrong. And I know that those three are the top three that that we're going to be speaking about today, particularly, but I'm sure the others will pop into it. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. So my first question that I'm going to put to you all is this: in your personal opinion and experience, why is it so important for brands and campaigns to build in diversity and inclusion in their output? And what are the biggest benefits of doing so, particularly when it comes to amplifying marginalized voices? And who would like to go first?
Well, I think most of the time, most of brands try to create kind of like a narrative or a campaign that speaks to a lot of different people. But there's a lot to think about from diversity, ethnicity, and also kind of just, all different kind of identity as well. So I think, I work with brands and product creative people constantly. I just feel like it's very important, a very comprehensive view over the message before the execution and then overseeing the process to have very authentic storytelling. And I think that's going to benefit because then you have a very core and strong, solid story that relate to a certain people in a group that you really want to communicate with. And I think that's the bond is something that I think is very beneficial to create from both sides. So yes, especially for people to relate and reflect like me. Yes.
Yeah, so kind of like make it more focused because when it's too broad, nobody it doesn't create that sense of belonging.
Right. And it has to feel very authentic. It has to feel like you really know these people. It's like coming to sharing your best friends or telling the story of your best friends.
Love that. Love that. Roxy, you're nodding. I'll come over to you.
Because I'm disagreeing. I agree because I believe that when you do that, you create joy for the communities that you're representing. So, as someone that's queer and disabled, we are often not displayed in marketing or in campaigns, but when we are, you cultivate a lot of joy in our community, as well as you can accumulate a lot of connection between us and your brand, which also means that we're more likely to engage in your content, but also if I go into relation of adaptable fashion, because I come from a fashion background, we're looking at the fact of people cultivating services and stuff that we need, which also means that we're likely more to interact with your brand and spend our money. We're a £1 billion industry, disabled people, as unfortunate as to say it as an industry, but that is just how it is seen. And when you do that, you cultivate the joy within us. If I bring you to the Assume I Can campaign that came out recently, that was an amazing campaign that came out, which showed that actually if you bring people on board and you can show like how the community reacts to that campaign is incredible. How people felt about that campaign kind of transcended out of our own community as well. So although disabled people had connected so intensely, and had really felt a lot of joy from seeing someone be able to be their authentic self and show that they can partake in so many facets of life. It also transcended to other people outside of that community, and they also got a lot of joy and had a massive learning curve from that campaign. So I think the benefit is not only do you cultivate joy in the communities that you're representing, whether they're queer or disabled, you also create learning situations for other people that are either allies or don't understand as much about those communities to learn from your campaigns and marketing that you actually create.
That campaign has been so powerful, and you've seen the ripple effect of that campaign. You've seen people from other countries. I think when you look at that campaign specifically, you often don't see representation of anyone non-English speaking, for example, but all of a sudden you have people from different countries saying, the message of "Assume I Can" in different languages, and people of different races, and it's been so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that just transcends, or when it's authentic, and when you actually have disabled people or queer people at the core of what you're creating, that message just fully comes across because it really is authentic, and it can transcend language, funny enough, like when people just feel that. And obviously also create other language options is also beneficial, and subtitles do help because they're quite easily changed into different languages, so even that creates a better level of diversity and inclusion, because then you don't leave anyone behind in the message that you're trying to get across.
Thank you so much. And Lee?
Yeah, if you haven't seen the Assume I Can campaign, I'd recommend after this, please go and watch it. It is spectacular, and I think it was every marketeer's dream, because it had people outside of our industry sharing it all over their socials. That's why I first saw it, and people that don't work in our industry sharing it, and it just absolutely blew up. I think it's a fantastic piece of work. For me, I think there's a few things on this, a few ways to approach this question. I think that often in media, we look at reach numbers and we say, okay, we've reached X amount of people, and that's great. You can reach, let's say on an average campaign, you can reach over 90% of a population in a country, but reach doesn't mean you're including people. And I think what happens often, reach is the killer of inclusion, right? And what we need to get to is understanding how can we deliver incremental reach, or how can we be more inclusive within the reach that we have. And that could be done by buying into different media channels. That means not necessarily taking media channels out, but look at diversifying the supplier list that you work with to make sure they are more inclusive. And as simple as casting different people in your ads. And we're going to come to casting, I imagine, a little bit later, but that's such a simple box tick that you can do within there. And lots of this comes down to the insight and the research, that understand who your audience is. And if you're not including them in your media selection or your creative choices, then simply put, you're not reaching them, you're not including them. And that's why I feel that we need to go beyond those reach numbers and begin to look at how we deliver something more. And for me, that is a very straightforward way that we can approach media buying in the future and creative execution. Look at the data, look at who's actually engaging with our brand, and that should then form the blueprint for who you're buying media against and who you're looking to include in your ads.
Thanks. When we had our pre-call, don't want to shatter the illusion, everyone, but these events we do have a pre-call. Lee, there was an advert that you mentioned that kind of like helped you, that really spoke to you back in the 90s, that kind of like hit you in terms of making you feel seen and included.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I saw that we have an attendee from Unilever on. It was a Unilever ad from back in 1998. It was the first ad that had a out gay male couple in. It was for Impulse. Now that ad was promoted, well, the press covered it quite a lot actually, and it showed two gay men walking down the street and a woman confused thinking that a guy was hitting on her, but actually she didn't realize he was gay. And that ad was a 30-second TVC that ran after 11 p.m. in the UK. And I remember at 14 years old being a very confused guy, knowing that I'd seen it in the newspapers that this ad was coming out. And I stayed up in my bedroom watching that ad just to see two people who looked and felt like me. And for me, that was a really powerful moment, because it was the first time that I'd seen acceptance. And one of the things I don't think that we appreciate as marketeers is the power that we have at our disposal to change culture and societal norms. And that was one of the things that ad did. Now that ad, which is nearly 30 years old, is so innocuous and inoffensive. It's almost, I think, offensive to women that they think, oh, every, all these guys fancy me, blah, blah, blah. It's such a lovely ad at the time, but not now. But the power that marketeers have to change perceptions, because we only think we live in a really open society, but there are going to be people in this world who don't feel seen, who don't feel validated. And by changing up the casting of your ads and to make it be more representative, you're going to make people feel less alone. That's how I certainly felt when I saw that ad. And now we've got a plethora of ads out there which have LGBTQ plus representation, but we shouldn't ever stop. We should keep on going, because we have no idea the power that we have to make people feel seen and heard.
Yeah, and absolutely. And to take it back to Roxy, your point, being an education piece as well. That sounds like an example of best practice back then, and kind of like really kind of pushing boundaries. Are you all happy to share maybe an example or two of best practice that you've seen recently where authentic representation has been abundantly genuine and meaningful?
So I've seen a few things recently because I've been looking and doing my own research for other stuff I've been doing. So very recently, I came across the Lego campaign. Well, it wasn't a campaign, it was more of a product launch in 2021. And it was the first LGBTQIA plus actual Lego set that was ever created. And they created representation and diversity by not using people's actual faces. But what they did was they used the actual rainbow colors themselves. And they created a whole set where all the figures and all the different pieces were all different parts of the rainbow. And it was so beautiful because it seemed authentic, because simply it kind of aligns with their basic values as a company, which is creativity and expression. And they kind of use their own core values when creating that. The only thing I would have said that would have made that better would have been maybe to have a little bit more size inclusion in the pieces. But I do understand that Lego has to be a certain size to fit on the actual display. But actually, it created a lot of emotion for people, and a lot of people really thought it was a beautiful thing to do. And they've kind of kept that up going forward. So it didn't really feel like rainbow washing, where it was like, oh, we're going to do this 1 year, and then that's it. They've kind of kept it up. And it also meant that the queer kid that goes into the shop and wants to buy Lego, like we all did. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people on this call have had Lego in their lives. You've got that one set where it actually really feels like they care about you and your representation. Because I can buy a Barbie set. I love Barbie. But I really want something that really shows me who I am, and I can bring them into my Barbie universe. So now Barbie's got her LGBTQ friends that she's always wanted, that no one's ever really given us. So if Barbie's listening to us, we would love some queer friends for Barbie. And then also I saw another thing which was by Equinox, and it was an LGBTQAI alphabet. And it basically was just a beautiful video of a very diverse collection of individuals. And it went from A to Z, and it showed different levels of representation between the queer community, everything from asexuality to fetishism. And it really allowed people themselves to speak about who they are. And it did it between dance and music and spoken word over. And it was just so nice, because not only did it show like diversity inclusion, it allowed people to speak for themselves. And it also included those people from the very first steps of that creation. And it came through because it was so powerful, but it was so fierce as well. And we can all sit here, but we know nothing's is going to be as fierce as actually queer people creating themselves. It's not been watered down. It was fully present and powerful. And I think those two things really made me feel like I was represented. I know it made my friends feel represented. And I hope if everyone else sees it, that they also feel represented in that, because it left no one out. And I thought that was quite beautiful.
That's stunning. Sounds like the co-production shone through. Just
Yeah, we
super
love that.
important. We do. JP's just put a note in the chat box. But if you've got an example of positive representation that you've seen, please share it in the chat box. We'd love to see it. Andrew.
Yes, I do have a very interesting one. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, M&M introduced a first trans character called Skittle, I believe. I was talking with some friends about some interesting examples, and my friend was telling me, "Oh my God, their children saw the campaign, and then they were amazed by it because how he did it was so brilliant done. I would just watch it over again. I feel really touched and so authentic. It's pretty much they try to introduce a new peanut butter product without the nuts, but then you kind of also infuse with a trans gender kind of like identity and to do that. So without the face, you put a really cute chocolate character and introduce the obviously the challenge being tackling the issues of labeling, tackling the issues of confusion, also corporate, cultures and stereotypes, so on, and then make fun of themselves. Obviously, maybe the company marketing team was ignorant. They don't understand who he is, who they are. I think it's very interesting, and in the end, they tie into their product strategy, that into like we offer a free nuts takeout for every single kind of like trans and main character like this. And I think that's very brilliant because they say that we're not our biology. And then I think it's very powerful because those kind of ads a lot of time it's going towards you see the age group of people who's going to watch that kind of ads. It can have a lot of educational value. And sometimes, I mean, when I was growing up, for example, how I kind of explain myself to my colleagues or to my classmates, to my niece and nephew, this is the best example. I think they did a lot of studies of how to use the right language and narrative and in a way of kind of ironic make fun of other people who doesn't understand the struggle, but use it in a very nice and genuine way to tell this Skittles authentic story. And I found that was quite profound. I strongly recommend people to see it and to watch it. And that was kind of blow my mind. And it was a very entertaining and creative as well.
Love that idea. I've just popped it in the chat box actually for anyone that wants to. We're going to come back to the anti-trans rhetoric that we're facing actually, because it's a relevant topic in marketing. But Lee, was there anything that you wanted to share at this point?
Yeah, there was a brilliant campaign that ran last year in the UK for Lotto, which is our national lottery campaign or brand here in the UK. And they ran their TVC as a 90-second ad, which was 30 seconds for TV broadcast, which had two guys meeting each other in a pub on the first night of the lottery win in 1994, or the night the lottery launched, and then showed you their life over the next 30 years of the lottery. And spoiler alert, they ended up they had the ticket and they won on the 30th anniversary of the lottery. But why it was such a beautiful campaign is because, well, there's many parts to it. First of all, it showed you gay love throughout the ages. So it's 30 years of two guys being in love, and showed you generations of gay men. Not something you often see, gay men in their 50s or 60s on ads. But then, as well as that, what was very beautifully done throughout the whole piece is, if you were watching it as an ally or someone who is not LGBTQ+, you would just see this is a lovely love story. But if you were LGBTQ+, what you would have seen is you would have seen yourself depicted and our history depicted through that, and in the 90-second cut. And it was absolutely stunning, where you saw some of the challenges that we faced here in the UK play out. And there was also moments of joy in there in terms of a couple getting married for the first time and such. And so it's this beautiful story that carried on. But what was so beautiful was that they had that ad and they tested it, and they were going to run it with a cis het couple, and it didn't work. It didn't work in testing. But when they ran it with two gay men and they ran it through testing, the results were off the scale. And what that demonstrates is that people are ready for LGBTQ plus representation in media. They don't see a gay love story, they see a love story. And I think that's what was so beautiful in terms of the development we've got now, that consumers are becoming increasingly aware of it, but they're increasingly accepting of it in society. So this is why I think that brands have a really important role to play here in terms of normalizing that conversation. It's a stunning ad that I wholeheartedly all of you recommend afterwards, because it demonstrates how love is a universal language and that anyone can experience it.
Thank you so much. I have popped that ad in there as well. So I'm really excited about watching all of these after this. Queer joy is so important, right? But unfortunately, when queer joy is depicted in ads, whether it's a simple having a Bud Light, a trans person having a Bud Light, would we have expected the amount of backlash that we saw over that? You know, brands are accused of being woke, virtue signaling, there's threats of boycotts. What's all of your takes on this, and how would you advise brands to respond?
I'll take this.
Go for it, Lee.
Yeah, Lee.
So for me, I would say that if you feel like it's authentic and done well, to back your campaign, as long as that backlash is not coming from the community itself. If the community are unhappy, try and find out and foster engagement to understand what it is that they feel like you have or haven't delivered correctly. And that happens not only in the queer community, but many other communities, but I'll come to that in a second. But if you feel like you've done the co-production, this has come from the community and the community are also backing this campaign, then back it, because then you show the community that you really do value them and that you're actually supporting them wholeheartedly. I think I spoke about this before, but as a disabled person, there's a lot of campaigns that come out around disability. And I know it's not necessarily about being queer, but there's a few campaigns that came around the Paralympics that they were calling disabled people superhuman. And it came across as very much as inspirational porn. And it wasn't created with the community in mind or with them actually having any input into it at all. So the community themselves actually pushed the backlash in that campaign. People that were non-disabled actually loved it and thought it was really, really good. But it shows you how easily your marketing can go awry if you don't actually have the people that matter most at the core of the creation that you're doing. And I'm going to pass over to Lee, if that's okay, because I feel like Lee's nodding because I know he's got something juicy to say.
No, I completely agree with everything you're saying there, Roxy. I think one of the big things for me when I look at this is we give too much agency to these people that are negative towards brands and get on it. If you look at all the stuff that come out around Colin Kaepernick and when they had the shoe burning, I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing anyway. People had already bought Nike shoes and they were burning them. What did you think? You were going to get your money back when you burnt them? It was crazy. And actually what you saw in the 2 weeks afterwards is that Nike saw their stock price increase by $6 billion. $6 billion. Now, what that says to me is go woke, go broke is one of the most bizarre phrases ever. It's an absolute fallacy. It's not go woke, go broke. It's be socially aware, make more money, right? That's what it comes down to. And we need to stop allowing that minority having as much agency as they do. They are very vocal. And you look at, there's many studies and stats that will back this up. 70% of younger millennials expect brands to have diverse casting in their ads and will feel more favorable towards a brand that do it. 59% of people say they will actively buy from companies that promote DEI. So if that is the case and those numbers are well over half, why are we focusing on the minority? Yes, they can. Yes, they're vocal. Yes, they can weaponize and get loud and amplify very, very quickly. But one of the things I think we need to remember around the Dylan Mulvaney controversy from last year with Bud Light is at the same time that Dylan was being pulled over hot coals by commentators in the US because of Bud Light, there was also a campaign running with Dylan with Nike and Kellogg's. Now, they didn't get dragged for that. And the reason being that Nike, going back to what Roxy was saying, Nike and Kellogg's have a very clear view when it comes to DEI work, and they don't back down in the face of pressure. So no one's going to come for those brands because they know that they're not going to flip flop. And so we need to ignore and that group. Don't give them as much agency and deliver brilliant campaigns. Be prepared for the backlash. Have your answers for it. But there are more people in society who will back what you do than will be detractors, and we need to give them more agency.
Can I
Yeah,
just say
absolutely.
something as well?
Yeah, please.
I absolutely agree with you, Lee, and you put it so well. And as someone that works for a charity, we changed our logo, and we have a progress flag logo, and we got incredible backlash from it. I call them trolls because I don't believe they're real people. I just feel like people that are very bored at home and have too much time on their hand. And ultimately, I'm glad that you brought up have the answer to the questions, because what we did was we supported our community and we made sure there was resources and support for the people that had to hear the horrible words that people were saying that you don't deserve to hear. But we also made sure we had a Q&A prepared when we put out content so that we can back up what we're saying and why we're saying it. And the backup was, we don't care what you think. These are our community. We love them. We are here for them, and we always will be here for them. And we put that out alongside being like, we're doubling down. And if that can come from a charity, there is no excuse for any other company not to do the same. It's just small steps, and they make such a big difference.
Yeah. I think to echo what Roxy and Lee just said, I think it's very important to create a message that's really has a value to people, especially towards the community. I think what the story that Dylan was dealing with, obviously she was singled out for those events, unfortunately, but the company didn't really have the follow-up or doesn't have any kind of answers prepared for this kind of thing. And then they just dropped the executive, they just dropped him and let her just handle the entire thing herself. I think that's a very cruel thing to do. And I personally have encountered many times when company wanted to cast me or wanted to do project together to promote brands and product. However, they don't really understand the community and don't understand what type of LGBTQ people they have or they are wanted to engage with, and it's very dangerous. And you can be just a tool to tick the box, because that's just because maybe for some management teams maybe that's easier way to feel that you're doing something inclusive. But I think most importantly, it's just also I see a lot of campaigns sometimes they have LGBTQ people and also they have Asian people, but it doesn't really represent us, because even probably wasn't telling the story about, the Asian community or certain people. It wasn't done in the right, narrative way. So I think that that is something to think about. What are your core customers that would really think that, it's a reflection. Everything you create is a reflection of the people you want to speak to. And are those people going to be happy, and are they going to be the biggest fans? Even things could go wrong or it can go both ways, then you need to have a very strong kind of solid path and a voice for your brand and your the people you choose to work with.
Absolutely. Let's stay on this theme then, because I think it is really relevant. How can brands protect and safeguard either the talent that they are using or their own employees when it comes to harnessing diversity inclusion in the face of backlash?
I think that's a really deep question. There's many facets to that. I think what you need to do is, first of all, go into this doing it for the right reasons, because what I've seen is many brands have gone into done this and they've backed away, is they've got scared, and then they've got scared by the backlash, and that's caused a lot of issues. So I think you need to have your clear guardrails in place. You need to have your exec team aware of what you're doing, and particularly if they get asked why you're doing this, that there's a company line that they understand and that they can deliver. Potentially send out comms to your people and explain what you're doing in there. And also, if you are working with talent, particularly in the influencer space, if you are going to be doing activations, such as we'll take the example of Dylan Mulvaney, then you have a duty of care to look after that individual. And I think what you need to do is give people a code of conduct. This is what you'd expect when you work with us. This is what we've got. And give them the reassurance that if there is going to be backlash, how you are going to deal with it, how you are going to support them. Because ultimately, this isn't just one activation you have. When you work in the DEI space, this is an ongoing journey. And if you damage the trust with one individual, it's going to be really hard to win that with the others. So you need to make sure that you're demonstrating the commitment you have to any diverse or underrepresented group, should I say, and have those guardrails in place so that the future talent that comes to work with you knows that they can work with you and you're a safe person to work with. But also your employees, if you're not doing this work, what are you saying to your current talent? If you are leaving them out, if you're leaving external people out to dry, what does that say to the people working your business? Not a good look. So it's really important you have that code of conduct in place to make sure that they understand where you're coming from and what you'll do, because that works internally as well as externally.
Thanks so much. Roxy, Andrew, is there anything you want to add?
I
I
think
would
it's
say,
sorry, Roxy, please.
I would say, don't also put it all on the internal groups in your companies. I find a lot of times, like, we create subculture groups internally to support. So you might have a mental health group, a disability group, a queer employee group. And I think I've realized a lot of times that they put Pride season or marketing campaigns or EDI actions on that group to feedback on. And they will put sometimes the creation of things externally on that group to deal with. And I think if you're trying to support your colleagues, you also have to be part of the change. The fact is, in history, queer and disabled people are incredible innovators and we adapt. And I have an amazing t-shirt from Catherine Hammett that says, "We are the future." And I happily wear that because I think we have helped carve an incredible one. And we will keep carving the future. So I feel like you need to support your colleagues, people externally, internally, because they are going to be the future. They will help carve that out. And if you do that, like Lee said, we're connected as a community. If you wrong one of us, we do talk about it. And that's quicker than any other social media platform ever will be. We are so quick at telling you who's great and who's not. So if you support us, I will absolutely send a message to Lee or Andrew or Neil and be like, "This company is amazing. They're fabulous. And the reasons why." And if you're not, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I might not say it on my social media, but I will tell my friends and they will not work with people because you forget to support them. Make sure you have like people for actual counseling. I've worked on a lot of things as a queer disabled person, and I've done a lot of things for television. And although television is a complicated place, some of the things that I love from it was they made sure there was like therapists and mental health help before I even started the programs and also after, because you cannot, even if you do your best work, guarantee how something is going to be picked up by the wider world and the universe. You can't do it no matter how good or bad the work is. So the only things you can guarantee is those safeguarding practices, making sure people have the space and the community and the people around them to make sure that they're okay, and also the community itself. And by doing that, people will build up trust with you as a company, and they'll want to help you create better campaigns and marketing because they will know that you're one of the good people. I think I've gone off slightly on a tangent.
That's okay. I mean, there was so much there and so powerful, and that building trust, that's a reason to do it in itself. That's a reason to do it in itself. Absolutely. Andrew.
Yes. So yeah, I think I work with so many people in different cultures and religions. Sometimes it can be very challenging as well. I think from what Lee and Roxy were saying, I think when I work with a company or a client, it's really, really understand what kind of long-term strategy they have when it comes to, targeting or engaging with the LGBTQ community. It has to have a very strong, I would say, a vision there. I remember, because people tend to have a very short-term memory when it comes to negativities and things. So, even though there's a bumpy road or maybe the company has never done this before, the first few steps may not be so smooth, but then you need to make sure you have enough, kind of strength or a different strategy to carry through. And also, like I remember I work with a lot of tourism boards. Sometimes when I go to a new destination or create a new programs or promotional program, I always have questions about how it works because for example, I had a really interesting conversation with the director of tourism from Colombia. And then I was like, well, Colombia is known for obviously many, many things, wonderful things, but also the religions, everything. How does the LGBT work? And they were like, listen, Andrew, Colombia now has become the most LGBT friendly country. They have the laws that protecting those people is even legal for same-sex marriage now, and also for parenting, and also to have all this kind of programs. And they even in their division they have an LGBTQ specialist. So they direct me to understand what kind of programs and even laws and also the detail they have implemented in order to make sure those people, when they go to Colombia, will be welcome. I think when it comes to the brand, that's very important too, because you have such a beautiful campaign or a campaign with a big message, but then you also need to translate from top to the bottom. Also, when the people see your product, for example, if the Pride season coming, you are having those Pride product or those messages coming into your store. Are those sales associated where your team can really tell the same story and cohesive? Just like I'm going to Colombia, am I gonna be feeling the same way I feel at home? And that's very important. And it is very important to think about before you really starting this initiative and executing those campaigns and trying to promote your product, because then, it's really about what they feel when they touch. It's really about the emotion.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really, really sharp segue into the penultimate question there. Pride season is coming up. How can brands avoid rainbow washing, misrepresenting communities? And Lee, I'll come to you first.
This is a build on something that Roxy said earlier, which is bring the community on board with you. Don't just have, if you're a marketeer, particularly if you're not a queer marketeer, don't think you know how to do Pride, right? Bring in the experts who can give you the guidance. Pride is a protest after all, and some of the brands that are absolutely smashing it at Pride right now are the ones that really understand that and understand about the activism. One of the brands that I work with, Strongbow, last year, they understood that inclusivity comes at the intersection. So they, as well as doing a Pride activation, they worked with a specialist disability agency called Purple Goat to make the space as accessible as possible. So what that meant was they had things like British Sign Language interpreters on stage. They had a specialist wheelchair area for those that needed it. They provided access for some people to get to the train station, down to the space, even getting down to understanding that some of the queens would need to, between their performances, would need a longer amount of time because they need to untuck, for example, and get ready for the next performance. And it was things like that that we didn't pick up initially, and it was part of our unconscious bias. But that's where we delivered a brilliant piece of work, because we worked with different communities, and that ended up giving us the most authentic display possible and really demonstrated that point I was making around it comes at the intersection. Bring in the experts who can identify where your biases are and come up with something that the queer community will really respond to and remember you for.
Love that, Roxy.
Absolutely agree. As you already know, Lee, I am a co-production queen. I'm all about co-production, but I want to add in that When you know one queer person, you know one queer person. We are not all the same, and we do not all feel the same. You need diversity within your diversity. I've gone blue in the face talking about better representation, whether that's in the queer community or the disabled community. We seem to believe that if we brought 10 people in the room, we know the answer, and we don't. We need to keep asking more people. You've heard from 3 of us. Please listen to 23 more of us and just keep adding more people, because you'll get the common theme, which I think is bring us in the room. But you need to look at the room you're looking at and make sure that room still has diversity. Like Lee just said, Strongbow done that well. They not only brought the queer community in, they brought the queer disabled community in. And then that made a better event, because not only did they understand what queer people wanted, they understood what disabled people maybe wanted. And in turn, that informed basically what the drag queens probably needed. And that's how you create a better, non-rainbow washed, fully inclusive event in your queer pride season. We are so ready to help. I can't even explain to the people I speak to. They're so like, they don't want us in the room. And we have to almost bang on the doors to get in. But we so want to be inside the room, and we want to help our own community, because the fact is we're full of love and we all love each other. We want everyone to live and have the most amazing Pride season. But for ages, I couldn't even attend Pride season because no one had ever considered queer disabled people that we might actually want to march. I've now got an incredible mobility aid that helps me get through it. But no one considered access toilet points, stops for disabled people to get off the march and get back on. Just those simple little tweaks just to make us all feel diverse. And I work for a charity, as I said, and we were doing co-production to create t-shirts and how we wanted to celebrate our queerness as disabled people. And I brought it back to trans people, because for me, the reason why I'm even here and why I can march, if we look at our history, was because of trans people. And I've realized that as a company, we had totally almost never considered them. So when you said Pride is a protest, that comes from that. And I used that slogan and I added an element of MS. So I wrote, Pride is a protest, don't MS with us. So I can create that connection between my disability self and my pride as a queer person, but also my pride as dating a trans woman. I want to show all facets of me, and everyone's so connected to it. And we've done it in trans colors because we wanted our trans siblings to know that we love them and we're also there for them. And we remember them even when the companies forget about you, because it was in a year where we felt like last year they brought the trans initiative back in. But before that, it felt like they just forgot about our trans sisters and brothers and siblings, because ultimately, as Neil said earlier, there's a lot of trans rhetoric right now. It's a really hard time for trans people just to exist. And for me, even as a queer person, I try to not forget about my queer siblings and their identities and everything I do.
Yeah.
And I always will.
Thank you so much, Roxy. We are cutting it for time, and I just want to tap into, you said earlier, we're entrepreneurs and we're innovators, and that's because we have to build our own spaces half the time and kind of have to think outside the box to get these things across. We have time for one more quick fire question from each of you, and that is, what top practical takeaway do you have for organizations to educate, upskill, and empower themselves to foster authentic representation in marketing? Andrew, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think I completely agree what Roxy and Lee just mentioned. I think a lot of decisions should be made by a team with a multifaceted and kind of very diverse background. It's very important to have different voice and different sets of eyes when it comes to creating ideas and executions. I think this is very important, like no matter what LGBTQ or what colors, what age group, all the things could trigger down to all to affect individuals. And I think you wanted to build a connection from your brand to your product and to these people. It's very important to really understand what they really need, like what they say. I had a really good example before too. Like when you have a certain performance during the gay pride, maybe you have a section that's for drag queen, they can touch up their makeup, get ready. Well, is it something that especially make them feel safe and empowering them in a different way for different. So I think I think case study asking, around to have diverse voices, and then to pick the one that's the most authentic and that's that really can have all the community supported. I think that would be the strongest bet that you can have.
Thank you. Lee?
Okay, this one very brief. Insight, insight, insight. Do your homework, identify who your audiences are. If you haven't got the insight, go and source it, because that will make you be authentic, because you'll understand who your audiences are, what they want, what they need from you, what they don't need from you as well. Follow the insight and you will not go wrong.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Roxy?
Don't be scared to get it wrong. We're all human at the end of the day. Own up to the mistakes. It's okay. And also wrap up. So if you've done something last year, consider getting those same people in the room and ask them what went well, what didn't go well, and what could be improved. It's so easy, and it's good project management at the end of the day. At the end of anything you do, to ask how we could have improved, what we did right and what we did wrong, and learn from it.
Thank you all so much. This has been an absolutely brilliant discussion. We could have easily filled much longer with this. We've shared some key takeaways. JP has been squirreling away in these background, capturing all your key takeaways that you've been sharing throughout the session. Focused on authentic story goes far with people, creating joy and connection. Explore the Assume campaign being a great one. Reach does not equal inclusion. Back your campaigns when they're done well. Take care of your talent and your employees. Safeguarding practices are key. Understand the long-term strategy. Bring in experts to uncover where your biases are. And when you know one queer person, you only know one queer person. It's not the whole story. And those takeaways that we've just heard, please do share your feedback. It is so valuable to us. It helps shape future events and helps us get to where we need to be going in terms of our own learning and taking that forward. We've got some great comments coming through in the chat box. Thank you, especially for the examples. And Billy says, I appreciate all your guidance and insights. So thank you. Tune in to our next webinar, which was on the 7th of May, where we'll be looking at inclusive wellbeing practices. But thank you so much, Lee, Roxy, Andrew. Great to see you. Stick around because we'll have a quick chat afterwards. But thank you so much, audience. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
That was brilliant. How you all feeling?
Oh, thank you so much, Neil.
Thank you.
Good,
Wow,
thank
what a
you.
panel.
I got a little panic because then I got mixed up with the time zone. So sorry about that. So
You're all
thanks,
good.
JP. Yeah, because it was saying 12 o'clock Eastern time. I was actually on the phone with New York. So I said, oh, I think that the daylight saving time has changed. So there was like 1 hour early. So I just got sit down, thank God. So yeah, that was
Cool.
brilliant. I mean, I really enjoyed it, speaking with you guys.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Likewise,
No,
yeah.
you're all absolutely brilliant. JP, you here?
Trick or treat.
Smashed it with those takeaways in the background, JP. Great takeaways.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. JP, you coming online for a picture?
No, I'm gonna stay offline for the
Okay.
picture, but I will take it.
Okay, fair. Okay.
Ah, fair enough.
Are you
Hold
going to
on
give
one
us the
sec.
3, 2, 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Let me take a peek. Love it. Amazing.
Thank you
Beautiful.
so much, everyone. Honestly, like that just went, it goes so fast though.
Yeah, it does.
It feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah, too fast. Well,
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. We'll share the recording with you. We'll tag you all in the recording when it goes online as well. I'll get that up tomorrow. I should probably just
Lovely.
record.